Good morning. I want to welcome you all to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization and the Office of Policy Development and Research's Small Business Outreach event. My name is Mayshoma Hayes, and I'm a Business Utilization Development Specialist in the OSDBU office. This event is a wonderful opportunity for small businesses to gain a wealth of insight into PD&R's procurement opportunities and meet their personnel. It also allows the agency to learn more about the diverse small businesses resources available to meet our procurement needs. The OSDBU continues to be available to you. We are responsible for ensuring that small businesses are treated fairly and that you have an opportunity to compete and be selected for a fair amount of the agency's contract dollars. For fiscal year 13, the department's small business prime contract goal remains at 37%, and our subcontracting goal is 55%. The process for negotiating the FY14, FY15 prime and subcontracting goals with the SBA will begin soon. Again, I want to thank you all for taking the time to attend our event, and I hope that you find it a valuable resource of information, but also an opportunity to meet with and network with other small businesses. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Jean Lynn Powell, the General Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Office of Policy Development and Research. She's responsible for the day-to-day operations of PD&R, which maintains current information on housing needs, market conditions, and existing programs, as well as conducts research on priority housing and community development issues. Without further ado, please welcome Ms. Jean Lynn Powell.
Well, thank you, Mayshoma, for that very kind introduction, and thank you for your ongoing support for our efforts to reach out to small businesses. I welcome all of you here today. This is a great turnout, and we also have viewers on our webcast. This is the first time that we're actually webcasting our small business fair. And welcome to all of you. I know many of you have traveled long distances and also have joined us 2 years ago, so it's great to see some familiar faces and ongoing interest in our work. So what do we do in PD&R? Well, our mission is to provide data analysis, policy analysis. We conduct major program evaluations and demonstrations and research, basically to inform the HUD leadership to help them make informed decisions when it comes to policy and programs. But I really liked recently, the Chief of Staff came to our senior management meeting, and he described us as the brain center for HUD. So I really liked that, and I told him I was going to use that line. In terms of PD&R's budget, I just wanted to give you kind of a top line. We are appropriated funds from Congress, and our main program account is called Research and Technology. And this fiscal year, they've appropriated $43 million. But a good chunk of that goes to our administration of major housing market surveys, in which we administer in partnership with the Bureau of the Census. But part of that goes to dissemination of our research products, and you'll be hearing more in terms of our efforts with Rochelle Levitt's presentation of what she does in our office. The other portion of funding is through our transformation initiative, and that's to fund our major program evaluations and demonstrations. And this year, we're expecting to fund just over $11 million in those types of investments. In terms of our workforce, we have a highly professionalized workforce. We have many PhD economists, social scientists, geographers, architects and engineers. So it's a wide variety, multidisciplinary workforce. We're predominantly here in headquarters with close to 100 employees, but we do have nearly 40 field economists that provide us with local market economic intelligence. We are one of the smallest units here in the department, but we certainly support all of the program areas with our work. Outside of the auditorium, you should pick up some of our materials. We have brochures about the PD&R organization, as well as a schedule of procurements that we're planning to do this summer. Actually, one of the vendors asked me in terms of the exact timing, and I was told that the listing that we have, we should be advertising those opportunities by the end of this month, shortly thereafter. I also want to let you know that we'll be holding a post-conference opportunity so that you can have more of a one-on-one dialogue with the office directors here. We also have some special guests with us. We have our procurement colleagues with us. Joining us are Kathy Baker. She's all the way in the back, but you'll get to meet her later, as well as her contract specialist, Ken Truesdale. And they've come a long way to support us, to support you. I do encourage you to take advantage of the resource. So we have a packed agenda for you. We have a number of presentations from our office directors, and they're going to share with you a little bit about their office and the capabilities that they're seeking. So we'll have Dr. Kurt Uzowski. He's our Deputy Assistant Secretary for Economic Affairs. He's going to speak to you about the housing analyses his shop does and the capabilities he seeks. We'll have Dr. Mark Schroeder, who's the Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Office of Research, Evaluation, and Monitoring, and he's going to speak to you about the demonstrations and program evaluations that he oversees in his office. And I mentioned Ms. Rochelle Levitt. She heads up our Research Utilization Division, and she oversees actually the HUD user website, as well as convenings that we do. And I know many of you have that background as well. And lastly, I do want to recognize Patrick Toohey. He's our budget officer, and his staff. They made this conference happen. And he's a major resource, and I hope that you get to meet him after the session as well. But we have a special guest from our sister agency, Mr. Anthony Ruiz. He's the Assistant District Director for Business Development for 8A from the U.S. Small Business Administration. And just to give you a little background about Anthony, if you get to Google him, you'll find he's had an extraordinary career. And he's a former business owner of various firms, primarily manufacturing, construction, and government contracting. And he's 30 years in the private sector. And as an entrepreneur, he's had 15 years experience in international and business management consulting. And for 10 years, he was a CEO turnaround manager. He also has a decade of experience in international commercial banking. He's also a decorated veteran. He was awarded the Purple Heart and Bronze Star for his service in Vietnam. And he has a number of advanced degrees. He's got a law degree in business and international trade from the University of Arizona, an MBA in finance, marketing, international business from USC, and he's got a BA in international relations from California State, Los Angeles. So let me welcome Mr. Anthony Ruiz. It's delightful to have you here. He's going to speak more about the Mentor-protege program. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm very happy to be here, and particularly sharing with you the Mentor-protege and joint venture program. And it's becoming very, very popular and becoming an excellent tool for our 8A companies to accelerate their growth and development, where some of them, when they entered into it with the mentor, there are a few $100,000 in revenues, and then after completing their relationship, maybe 2-3 years later, they're like at the $5-6 million mark. And but it's also a challenge in that at the same time, it's improving the management of their firm and their infrastructure. But it is an excellent vehicle for growth and development. So I'm very happy to share that with you. It's in this conversation with you, I'd like to know with whom I'm speaking. So show me by hands, how many of you are 8A firms already? Wow, very good. Excellent. How many of you want to be 8A firms? Excellent. Excellent. How many of you are large businesses? Any large businesses here? One. Very good. Excellent. And the program has dramatically changed, and large businesses are highly interested in this. And I'm going to explain why later on. Let me share with you where to read up on this. This is highly governed by the Code of Federal Regulation. And for the Mentor-protege program, 13 CFR 124-520. And we use that also to enforce compliance with the program. And then the joint venture program, 13 CFR 124-513. You do not need to get, if you're just at a small business level, you do not need to get involved in the mentor-protege side if you want to form a joint venture within the small business. And so what would only be applicable to you would be 124-513. I encourage you to read this to obtain a thorough understanding and how these two programs are governed. The purpose of the Mentor-protege program, this is all about the 8A firm. And we hold the mentors accountable for training and developing the protege. And we look at that. That is the reason you want to enter into this relationship and not just to do contracts. So it's to enhance the capabilities of the protege, to assist the protege in meeting its business goals as are established within that 8A firm's annual business plan. Every business plan for an 8A firm indicates very specifically what are their strengths and their weaknesses. And there we want to see those weaknesses specifically addressed, and what person and title within the mentor company is going to train the protege, and then how soon after, how many days after the agreement is approved by SBA, and then we expect it to be ongoing throughout the life of the agreement. Although the agreement itself is for 1 year, it can go on for 5 years without ever having to update or amend the mentor-protege agreement. And finally, to improve the protege's ability to successfully compete in the marketplace. Notice, I didn't say contracting. And one of the weaknesses of 8A firms is to become too reliant on the 8A program. And so what we want them to do is wean off that reliance and learn to compete in the commercial marketplace as well as in non-8A federal contracting. And so there we look to the mentor to train them and show them how and show them the way. Both parties, mentors and proteges, can have multiple relationships. Mentors can have up to 3 proteges so long as they are not in competing NAICS codes. Now, mentors and proteges, even though the primary NAICS code of these different proteges are different, if the secondary and tertiary and additional NAICS codes are too similar, we will not approve it. We will not approve it. And so we need to see a clear distinction that they are different and in the scheme of their business and industry. Proteges may have up to 2 mentors so long as those mentors are not in competing NAICS codes. And so there we look, they can complement one another. And there, even for the protege, that creates some synergy as well in its marketing efforts. All mentor-protege agreement documentation must be approved by SBA in advance following our regulations and guidelines. When we initially meet with the proposed mentor and protege through our business opportunity specialists assigned to service that protege, we then provide you guidelines and we provide you a template for the application and a list of the documentation that we're requesting. There's basically 2 types of joint ventures, and this is very critical as to how you can form your joint venture and even share profits. There's a populated joint venture and an unpopulated joint venture. A populated joint venture is when the mentor and protege have formed a separate legal entity, like a limited liability company. That's very popular. And then they place employees in that LLC. So they have populated that LLC with employees. And the unpopulated JV is where they form a DBA for the joint venture, and but they're using the employees within the protege and the mentor. And this is done on a contract by contract basis. And so even though you have this relationship, it does not mean that the protege is going to do all the business that the mentor is doing. It's contract by contract. The joint venture features. In an unpopulated joint venture, the 8A protege must perform at least 40% of the work, and the mentor can perform up to 60%. Now, there are instances where the mentor is not going to do 60%. They're going to do 40% also, and the 8A is going to do 40%. Then what they can do is then subcontract that other 20%. And but in most cases, we see mentors doing the 60, and when the protege can only do 40. This is a big improvement from the past. In the past, it was 51% for the 8A firm, and the 8As didn't have the capacity to perform on these large contracts. And now, mind you, this 40% applies to direct costs. It does not include the administrative costs of the contract. So we're talking the 40% is attributed to materials and labor. For the populated, for the unpopulated JV, the profit is shared commensurate with work. What that means then, if the protege is doing 40% of the work, then they will obtain 40% of the profit. And then if the mentor is doing 60% of the work, they would obtain 60%. If this is a populated JV where you have the separate legal entity, the 8A firm must own and control 51% of that firm, and profit is shared commensurate with ownership. So what that means, mentors, if the 8A firm can only do 40% of the work, they're still going to get 51% of the profit. And it's needless to say, the most popular applications we're getting are the unpopulated JVs. Every now and then we do get the populated JVs, but far and wide, the most popular are the unpopulated JVs. The protege must be in the joint venture, the managing venturer and the project manager. So one of the employees of the 8A firm will be the project manager for that contract. And if you form an LLC, then the 8A firm is the managing member of that LLC. And when we evaluate the operating agreement between us, we go through it with a fine-tooth comb, looking for any language that would give even the hint of negative control, meaning where the 8A firm is being put in a position of abdicating control, and or the mentor or the mentor's attorney or the mentor CPA would have some decision control over the firm, and because that runs against the regulations. The 8A firm within its own company and now within this JV must have unconditional, absolute control, particularly when it's a separate entity. SBA mentor-protege eligibility. The SBA, the protege, must be an 8A certified firm and in good standing. If you are on sole source restriction, we consider you're still in good standing. However, you have to let the mentor know that you are on sole source restriction, and then you cannot pursue sole source contracts, even though it may be temporary. The 8A firm must be in the developmental stage of the program participation. That means years 1 through 4 in this 9-year program, and then years 5 through 9 is the transitional stage. Or the 8A firm have never received an 8A contract, or the small business size standard of that 8A firm is half the size standard of the primary NAICS code for that firm. And I got an 8A firm that they have 1 year left in the program. They've gotten several 8A contracts, but they're still very, very small. And so they're a fraction of the size standard of the NAICS code for that company's primary NAICS code. So therefore, they're still eligible. And that 8A firm must have less than 6 months remaining in the program. We have some 8A firms that are mentors, but an 8A firm cannot be both a protege and a mentor. There are distinct benefits to the Mentor-protege program. One is corporate development of the 8A firm, and I gave you an example of that, how that is happening. When that doesn't happen, either the protege or the mentor may inform SBA by 30 days notice that we'd like to terminate this relationship. And we don't count that against them. The mentor then can find another 8A firm and then pursue this new relationship. Although mentors may be a large business, in affiliation with an 8A firm, when there is an approved mentor-protege agreement, affiliation is obviated. And in addition to that, now it's when they form the joint venture under an approved SBA mentor-protege relationship, this large business with a small business in a joint venture are now considered a small business together, where they could pursue 8A contracts and small business set-aside contracts as well. The mentors and 8A protege firms may joint venture in an 8A small business to pursue federal 8A contracts as a prime contractor or as a sub, where there's another large business with a mega contract, and now this JV can come in and say, hey, we're an 8A. The JV is an 8A, and we'd like to be a subcontractor, and now the prime contractor is able to achieve their small business goals in hiring an 8A firm. Opportunities for non-8A firms, and there's a number of you out there, and there are many opportunities. One is the large and non-8A small business can expand their market base into the 8A federal contracting and small business program. Well, what kind of market is that? Well, 23% of over $4 billion market. That's the size of the market. That's why this program is becoming very, very popular with the mentors, particularly now where sequestration is causing a shrinkage to the market, and so they're looking for new ground. And that in itself presents opportunities for the 8A firm as well, where they become, it's popularly sought after. The small business that is not 8A, you can form, without a mentor-protege agreement, you can form a joint venture approved by SBA if you're going to be in the 8A program. And so long as the two of you combine are less than the small business size standard for a solicitation that you're pursuing on a contract, you are eligible. You are a small business, and now together, this non-8A small business and the 8A small business under a joint venture approved by SBA, you are 8A. And so those of you that would find it impossible to be 8A, that's your ticket to ride to get into the 8A program. And in women-owned small businesses, you could also, you don't need the WSB, but now this is another market opportunity for you as well. And I need to mention, one of the misconceptions of the 8A program is that you have to be a minority to be 8A certified, and I've certified about a dozen non-minorities, and it's a higher threshold, a preponderance of evidence. And we have one of my former clients here in the audience that I certified about 4 years ago. And so learn about that under the SBA website, preponderance of evidence. The other opportunities is where other agencies are rapidly adopting the Mentor-protege program as well, and where in addition to 8A contracting, it's small business set aside under the Mentor-protege program. Some of them are just doing it following 8A and not adopting theirs, and some of those are adopting them for themselves, where in addition to the 8A program, they're doing the small business set aside under a Mentor-protege. Keep this on your radar. In the near future, because of its popularity and success, the Mentor-protege and JV programs will be expanded to women-owned small businesses, hub zones, and disabled veterans. I thank you very much. And do we want to open it for questions right now? Okay, very good. Are there any questions?
Yes, sir. On this last one that you talked about, small business at 8A, one at JV, provided they stay within the size standard, small business size standard, I think it's 25 as well. Question is it size standard 3-year average?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the question is the size standard based upon the 3-year average? And that's very common, that under the NAICS code, size standards are measured by number of employees for some NAICS codes and revenues, and for other NAICS codes, and that's based on a running 3-year average. So you may have one really good super year, and but then that won't get you out of the program because we look at it over 3 years. And that also applies even to like your net worth as well, and your adjusted gross income as well, and still being qualified and eligible as economically disadvantaged under the program.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Follow on his question with the SBA 8A JV, does the revenue sharing have to maintain, does the 8A stuff maintain 51%, or is it, like you said previously with the large businesses, it's commensurate with however the JV is set up within the managing partners and the work share, that type of thing?
If you have an unpopulated joint venture, it's the revenue, the income is shared commensurate with work. And but if it's a populated joint venture, the profit is shared commensurate with ownership. Okay, does that answer your question?
It doesn't, that's just through, that's from the SBA Mentor-protege program.
Yes. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good morning. My name is Luana Russell. I'm with Business Management Associates, and I have a question about the Mentor-protege program and affiliation. So you mentioned that an 8A company can become a protege of a large firm, and together those firms can pursue 8A opportunities. Is there a certain number of opportunities, a certain number of wins that they can pursue together before affiliation kicks in? Can you explain the affiliation rules?
No, that's affiliation's waived.
It's waived.
They're going after big contracts.
Right, just for it, and it's for that 1 year period. So you can go after as many as you want for that 1 year period, and then
It goes beyond the 1 year period. The Mentor-protege, when it's initially written up, it's for a 1 year period.
Right.
But under that same original Mentor-protege agreement, they can go on indefinitely. And now the way it works, I'm glad you brought that up. In the old days, and this is another reason why the mentors did not like the program, a joint venture was limited to 3 bids. Now, under the reform program, a joint venture is unlimited bids, 3 contract awards. Now, after they have achieved 3 contract awards, and if they still like working together, hey, this works real good, let's do some more, they can then create a new joint venture under a different name and under the same pre-existing mentor-protege agreement. And now, even though the revenues of that 8A firm, the majority of those revenues are in the affiliation with that mentor, affiliation is obviated.
And so in a mentor-protege program or a mentor-protege relationship, you must also always form a JV or no?
It's if the mentor and the protege are going to pursue and want to pursue contracts together, then it has to be an SBA-approved joint venture if it's going to go into 8A. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me get somebody. Yes, ma'am. Use a microphone, please.
Hi, Rachel Hunt with Avar Consulting. Does the size of the JV affect the size of the small business, the 8A? So if you exceed the size standard for your primary NAICS codes within the JV, will that bounce you? Will that kill the JV?
Okay. We will monitor the 8A firm during its progression with the mentor to make sure the 8A firm is still a small business and still economically disadvantaged. And some of them have outgrown, and some of them have become relatively well off. And so then we tell them, you're going to early graduate with our blessing. You've achieved success in the program, and so we're going to have to impose early graduation. And so then we give them a hug and a blessing and go on and prosper. But so long as you remain a small business and economically disadvantaged, then you could continue within the program and JV after JV, all right? And also in compliance with all the other regulations within the program itself. Yes, ma'am.
I'm interested in knowing if the revenues from the JV are counted into the revenue from the original certification of the 8A firm, or will the revenues that are awarded under the JV, are they separate? So for instance, for the graduation description that you just described, can you continue to have awards under the JV and never really graduate because your original contract does not have those awards?
Good question. We do not consider the total revenues under the JV, only the portion attributed to the 8A firm. And when the 8A firm does its tax returns and the mentor does its tax returns, they also report only the revenues that they shared under the joint venture. So they are split, yes. Any other questions?
Can the government limit a contract to the mentor-protege program? Is there such a set-aside?
Can the government limit?
In other words, proposals that come in from contractors to, can we
How do you
say,
mean? I'm trying
you know
to
how 8A, you do an 8A contract and only 8A firms can compete. Is it a similar set-aside for mentor-protege arrangements? I guess there isn't, I guess, the way.
Meaning, can agencies say, I'm going to set aside a contract only for mentor proteges?
Right.
We have not seen that yet.
Okay.
And it's so far it's been set aside like for
Correct.
8A
Right.
or small business
Right.
set aside or women
I didn't know
only.
if there was an
But-
additional, right, no.
But we have seen where JVs are competing with other small businesses, and now they have a clear advantage because of the capacity and the past performance of the mentor and supporting the overall proposal.
All right. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Very good. You had a question earlier.
She asked the question.
Okay, very good. Any other questions?
You talked earlier about people that might want to become 8As. I'd like to start now
The there is a waiver, and it's a 5-point test, a very rigorous 5-point test, and that's spelled out in SBA's website under the 8A program. However, you must have at least 1 year of revenues. And but my recommendation to you, I've been consulting 8A firms since 1986, and 99.999% of the 8A firms I've met in years 7 and 8 regretted becoming 8A when they became 8A. Why? Because they were not well versed in federal contracting, and it took them 3 to 4 years to actually become productive. What does that mean? They wasted 33 to 40% of a valuable resource. My advice to you is don't become 8A for 4 years. Learn federal contracting. Learn it. You could be a sub, and you could be a 1099. It's learn it. And because federal contracting is very structured and a complicated process. And so you have to learn the process. You have to learn compliance. You have to learn the vocabulary. You have to get acquainted with the players, because people do business with people they know, people they like, and people they trust. And you're just a brand new 8A. It's that in itself is not going to guarantee you anything. We have many, many 8A firms, many that are not achieving contracts. Why? They got into the program way too early. They qualified on paper, and so they couldn't be refused. But someone should have told them, "Hey, bud, just hold off. Learn it first. Then, once you're productive, you're truly, truly going to be successful in the 8A program. Like the most successful ones in the program, they did learn it first, and either through their prior employment and or through their own firm. That's my advice to you. And to all the listeners out there, hold off. And I've told many companies that I advise against them to not apply, but to learn the program, and it's paid off for them. Yes. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. And
our next speaker, thank you very much, Anthony. It was a very informative presentation. Our next speaker is Kurt Yuzowski, our Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Office of Economic Affairs. Kurt?
Thank you. I didn't know I had any fans in the audience. I'm Kurt Yuzowski. I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Economic Affairs, as Gene said. I want to tell you a little bit about my office and the immediate contracting opportunity that we have, and a little bit about a future opportunity that may be around next fiscal year, the Congress be willing. I'm not going to have a PowerPoint presentation, so you don't need to strain your eyes trying to see that. So the Office of Economic Affairs is made up of 4 divisions, as well as our field economists. Gene mentioned that we have about 40 people in various field offices around the country. They're part of the Office of Economic Affairs. They become experts in local housing markets and the local economies that they investigate, and they help the department by evaluating the markets for where developers are applying for FHA multifamily loans to build new housing projects, to make sure that there's a sufficient market there that the project is likely to be successful. We also have the Economic Market Analysis Division. That group in headquarters, the field is part of that group, but the headquarters side of that shop works on supporting the HUD housing subsidy programs, the Housing Choice Voucher Program and the other housing subsidy programs. Their major functions are estimating the fair market rents that are used in the voucher program by the housing authorities to set the payment standards on vouchers, and they also set the income limits for eligibility for HUD programs, as well as, at last count, something like 28 other programs throughout the federal government use the area median income estimates and income limits for setting program eligibility. They also have, that's the site of one of the future opportunities I'll be discussing in a little bit. We have the Housing Finance Analysis Division. That group is experts in all aspects of housing finance, from mortgage origination and the way the numerous firms interact when a mortgage is originated, to secondary markets, and they're also provide a lot of support to the Federal Housing Administration, FHA, in terms of their formulation of policy, and also the development of the model that goes into the FHA total scorecard, which is used for doing preliminary or automated underwriting for FHA single-family loans. And we have the Housing and Demographic Analysis Division. That's where most of the money that Gene was talking about for surveys goes. That group works very closely with the Census Bureau. Their major product is the American Housing Survey, and that's a survey we do every 2 years, which is the federal government's principal data source on the nature and condition of the nation's housing stock. So what the AHS does is it follows longitudinally, goes back every 2 years to the same housing unit, maybe a different family living there, maybe the same family, but then we do the survey every 2 years and collect the information and see what's happened to the housing units that are out there. They also conduct other surveys with the Census Bureau, the survey of construction, survey of market absorption of multifamily units, new multifamily units, and the manufactured housing survey. We have the Economic Development and Public Finance Division. That group kind of catches a lot of the other assignments that come to the Office of Economic Affairs. They spend most of their time these days working on economic analysis of HUD's regulations. Whenever HUD wants to issue a new regulation governing one of its programs, or maybe regulating some aspect of the market like manufactured housing construction standards, the regulation has to be evaluated for any economic effect. And OMB is very particular that we do this for every single rule, whether it has a major impact or not. So that keeps that group very busy. They also work on issues around taxation. Public finance is what economists use to refer to taxation. And that means that they spend a lot of time working on the low-income housing tax credit and trying to collect data on the projects that are produced with low-income housing tax credits, as well as the tenants. We were given a mandate a few years ago to try to collect data on tenants. Since we don't administer the program, we had no data on the tenants, and it's been a struggle for us to try to cobble together a system to collect all that data from the state housing agencies that actually administer this federal tax credit, which is the biggest housing program, but not part of HUD. Are there any hub zone businesses here? Okay, we got a few. That office also designates the qualified census tracts that are the hub zone areas throughout the country, and especially in the metropolitan areas. So we work closely with the Small Business Administration in helping with the administration of the hub zone program. So the contracting opportunities that we have available, actually the one in 2013 is related to the American Housing Survey. In order to help us produce the American Housing Survey, we hire a contractor that helps us with the quality control. So we examine the data before it gets released to the public, make sure that things make sense, that the weights were done right, that when we look at the data, we get what looks like consistent and accurate counts of various parts of the housing stock. So what this contract is going to help do, it'll be a multi-year contract open for small business competition that will assist with the quality control of the 2013 and 2015 American Housing Survey data, create the documentation, and assist the survey's users both inside and outside of HUD. They prepare various reports. One of the important ones is the components of inventory change and the rental dynamics reports, which look at what happened to the housing stock between two surveys. So you look at what the housing stock as it was in 2011 and compare that to 2013, kind of going in both directions, seeing where things came from and where things went. And then the rental dynamics report focuses specifically on the rental housing part of the stock and characterizes it by affordability of rents relative to income. Also, that contract will be preparing the characteristics of HUD-assisted renters in their units. The American Housing Survey includes an oversample of identified HUD-subsidized housing that then we aggregate that data, and we want to produce reports that tell us about the tenants and the condition of the housing that they're in. Because it's HUD subsidized, and we want to make sure that HUD subsidies are going to produce housing that's high quality for our tenants. They'll be also developing and maintaining a bibliography of documents that use AHS data, so surveying the academic literature to see who's using the AHS to write reports and do research with the AHS, and then compile that so we have a list so we can show people how useful that the survey is. Also, every year they prepare 2 or 3 technical reports on special areas of interest to HUD using the AHS data. So the kind of skills we're seeking there, we want people that, preferably people that have experience using the American Housing Survey, so deep familiarity with that survey, have used the data for past research, that have strong econometrics and statistical skills, so they understand the issues that are involved in creating a survey and making it nationally representative, and are good writers. It's because we're producing reports and we want to have high quality products produced. Now, looking a little bit further ahead to 2014, Congress willing, and we get a budget for it, we'll be doing an evaluation. This is out of the Economic Market Analysis Division. We'll be doing an evaluation of a demonstration that we've started on small area fair market rents. So back up a little bit. In general, fair market rents are estimated at the metropolitan level or the non-metropolitan county level. So you have the same fair market rent for everybody who's operating a voucher program in the Washington, D.C. metro area, all the way from Berkeley County, West Virginia to PG County, Maryland. So that's a wide area, has the same, everybody starts with the same rent before they set their payment standards for the voucher program. Well, what we started a couple of years ago was to allow a certain set of housing authorities to operate with fair market rents that we estimate at the zip code level. So it takes into account the wide variation that you would expect to see in rents within a metropolitan area. And we have a limited number of housing authorities that have been operating under that for a little while. And by about 2015, after the 2014 contract is awarded, we think we'll be in a position to study what has been happening in those voucher programs. And so that will be a study we'll be looking to compete among small businesses in 2014. Skill set we're looking for there, again, strong econometric analysis capabilities, knowledge of the HUD housing programs, and good writers. So next up is Mark Schroeder from the Office of Research, Evaluation, and Monitoring. He's got a thick packet of contracts to talk about.
Do I have to pick these up? No. Thank you, Kurt. Hi. I'm the Office of Research, Evaluation, and Monitoring consists of 3 divisions, and we're going to have a wide variety of very specialized skills that we're going to be looking at in FY13, FY14, and FY15. And I hope there are people in the room or on the web who can help us to fill them. First of all, the Program Evaluation Division uses applied social science methods to report on the uses and outcomes of HUD's programs. The division is conducting innovative and objective assessments, for example, of housing discrimination of various kinds. It's creating an objective framework for allocating administrative fees in the voucher program. It is rigorously testing 4 alternative approaches to solving homelessness among families with children. That's the Program Evaluation Division. The Affordable Housing Research and Technology Division brings engineering and planning skills to the physical structures that HUD gets involved with. This division reports, for example, on what happens to LIHTC properties after their 15-year commitment to low-income housing expires. It explains the construction deficiencies that caused public housing projects in New York City to become uninhabitable after Sandy, even when none of the units were flooded. It disseminates sustainable residential design in Indian country. So that's Affordable Housing Research and Technology. The Program Monitoring and Research Division monitors the families that HUD serves and where they live. This division handles geographic information systems, data quality management, many types of internal reporting. For example, it reports on assisted tenant characteristics for all developments and geographies, and it manages the Postal Service vacancy data, which gives commercial and residential vacancy rates for any small area likely to be of interest to HUD. For FY13, I'm going to be referring to this handout a fair amount. I'm going to first be describing the first 4 projects, which are all restricted to small business. For those projects, we are interested in receiving capability information about firms in this following category: an excellent record of past performance providing engineering, architectural, or community planning services in the areas of pre-disaster planning, disaster-resistant construction, energy-efficient construction materials and methods, evaluating the durability-affordability trade-off in construction materials and methods, improving the mutual accessibility of affordable housing and transportation. Strong report writing capability is expected in this category. So there are 4 projects for FY13. The first is disaster resilience. I'm not going to read the whole thing. The contractor will review the available state-of-the-art models that are used to predict the extent of flooding as a result of coastal storms and riverine flooding, and develop strategies to allow those models to be integrated into local planning processes. Disaster resilience. Web-based utility allowance model. In this project, the purpose is to develop a web-based utility allowance model that will enable the department to estimate reasonable levels of utility usage in 2 housing programs, Housing Choice Voucher and Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, in which utility expenditures are paid by the tenants. So that's a utility allowance modeling. The third project, durability by design. A handbook with that title was published in 2002, but since then there have been many new concepts identified that can serve to make homes more durable. Floods, tornadoes, and hurricanes have also demonstrated that consideration of durability issues in design and construction can improve the performance of housing in those situations. This project will update our Durability by Design guidebook to reflect current knowledge. Finally, for FY13, the Integration Guide for Innovative Building Technology. Many organizations that operate and upgrade assisted housing are not sufficiently knowledgeable of key decision-making factors and issues related to innovative building technologies. The intent of this research effort will be to develop an integration guide for choosing appropriate building technology products and systems in both new construction and renovation of single and multifamily housing. The guide will include simplified best practices and tools for several aspects: economic decision-making, performance expectations, application feasibility. Now, on the last page of your handout, it gives some contact information for these projects in general, and in general, that contact is Elizabeth Koch. However, she will be represented today, if you would like to talk to somebody about these projects, by Regina Gray, who I think I saw behind the pillar. Is that Regina? Could you come out so everybody could take a look at you? Yeah. All right. So if you think you have some capability in one of those areas, please talk to Regina in the breakout session. Second area, this will be for FY14 and FY15. We are putting in place an enterprise GIS platform. We will be looking for firms to help us develop, implement, and support applications on that platform in FY 2014 and FY 2015. Here we are looking for an excellent record of past performance, providing geographic information systems and geocode services in the following areas: program and project management, steady state operations and maintenance, geodatabase design and implementation, programming and application development, whether for mobile, internet, or desktop, requirements analysis, systems integration, service-oriented architecture design and implementation, modeling, analysis, and reporting, training and technical support. Your contact for GIS is Rob Renner. Come out from behind the pillar so people, okay? That will be not only today, but throughout. And his email address is listed on the last page of your handout. A word of advice for generalized IT firms that don't have specialized GIS experience. You may find that conversation frustrating. The Program Evaluation Division has several specialized needs that we may issue procurements for in FY 2014, as Kurt says, Congress willing. An excellent record of past performance in survey research, especially among difficult groups. Two of the difficult groups are small landlords, low-income households. That's one capacity we're looking for. A second capacity to match records for HUD-assisted tenants with Medicare or Medicaid records in order to determine whether our programs are assisting tenants in reducing their health problems. Your capacity would be demonstrated by past successful engagements involving Medicare or Medicaid microdata. Number 3, there are probably many firms who could do this, but my hunch is that most of you wouldn't want to. Willingness and capacity to redesign a medium-sized database and probably re-enter all the data from scratch. There is a tragic story behind this. Your content, the division also has an FY13 procurement, which is listed in your handout, that I am not putting a lot of stress on. It is not restricted to small business. It is a very large contract that is a follow-on, and that is the one titled Homeless Family Study Follow-on Description. That's on page 3. So anyway, your contact for survey research, federal health microdata, data set reconstruction is Carol Starr. Carol? And she both today and if you have follow-up email contacts that you want to make. Finally, we have a miscellaneous social science category. We think we know pretty well the landscape of firms that can offer applications of social science to federal agencies pretty well, but we're willing to be surprised at what we don't know. So if you have some social scientists on staff and they have demonstrated special capabilities to assist federal agencies or other similar customers, and if you think we don't know about it, please come talk to me. Once again, I'm Mark Schroeder. Thank you. Rochelle Levitt.
Good morning. I am Rochelle Levitt. I'm the director of the Research Utilization Division within the Office of Policy Development, which is in the Office of Policy Development and Research. And today what I'm going to describe are quite a few contracts that we have that are existing or up for proposals in the next couple of years. I also will describe something that is in a different part of the Office of Policy Development in the other division. So let me run through each of them. The first and our largest is our website operations and the clearinghouse content within the website and the broader content. Those are ongoing contracts that we have, but I thought I'd raise them because all contracts eventually end, and so if you keep track of the functions that we have within the Research Utilization Division, you will see that this could become available. So look at HUDuser.org. HUDuser.org is where we have a great deal of our information, where you'll see what we do throughout PD&R, and we are have maybe cut 3 more years within the existing contract, but it has 2 components. The first part is the website operations, which is the IT side, and then the content side, which includes the content on the website as well as several other functions that we have that exist in terms of help desks and so forth within the clearinghouse. But both of those are ongoing right now, and so I won't dwell on those. The first one that is coming up this spring is editorial services. We will be looking for a company that can provide on-the-go editing of our reports, our publications, our brochures, and so forth. This would be a company that has the capacity to do copy editing and small graphics. So you should be looking for that if you have that skill set. It will be a small business contract. The next is a student design competition development. This is new for us. We are looking for someone that will help us in designing a student competition that will occur next year in the spring. And so we need an organization that has experience in designing competitions. That's a specific skill. If an organization does not have that, they would find it difficult to help us organize that. It's a student competition for teams that would be organized around a problem that we would have that HUD would define. If you have had experience in developing competitions, we'd be very interested in you pursuing that. Otherwise, it would be difficult for a company to demonstrate that they have that skill set. The next is graphic arts that will also be coming up spring 2014. If you are a graphic arts company, we'd be very interested in talking to you. We have a lot of graphics that we do for large reports, small reports. We have a kind of demand that is ongoing over the year. There's a lot of quick turnaround as well as some ongoing work. The graphics has been going on for a long time, so we have an experience with it, but we are looking for another small company starting next year. Also next year, our meeting planning contract expires, and we'll be looking for an organization that has the meeting planning and convening experience that can operate in usually quite small meetings. We don't do large-scale conferences, so we did with 100 people or less. Organizations that have done that in the past should be interested in looking out for this one. We are very interested in 8A firms for this. So if you are an 8A firm and you have a meeting planning experience, you should be on the lookout for this kind of skill. Lastly, not in my division, but in the Office of Policy Development, there was a multidisciplinary research team, but that is under procurement at the moment. I just want to mention it to you also, that you see that we have quite a broad breadth of things within the Research Utilization Division. We are the support side of PD&R, and so you can see we have quite a group of contracts that you can expect to see from us. Do you have any questions? You have to come to a mic.
didn't speak about the expert convening. Is that something that's
Oh, I'm sorry. Expert convening is closed, so and pending review. So I just skipped over it. But it is a contract that will help us form small convenings within HUD to solve specific problems that we would identify within PD&R, and would have the capacity to purvey for travel and so forth, and then write reports up on what those convenings will be about. That is pending review at the moment, so it isn't available right now. And our staff will be available. I think I see that they're sitting behind the pole for me. If you might all stand up. We have Eileen Faulkner is here. She'll be sitting at the desk. Linda DiFilippo. And is Michelle here? Okay, and one other person is Michelle Matugush. So the three of them will be at the desk outside if you have specific questions about what to expect in each of these areas. Any other questions? No? Okay, thanks. Sir.
Good morning. What we're going to do now is end the session. But any other questions for the panel members? And on the webcast, if anything has come in on email. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to direct you outside, and we set tables up. And the way we've arranged it is by each office. Oh, I'm sorry. There are questions? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned an 8A for one of your projects. Do any of the other offices have contracts that are 8A or woman-owned small business or HUD specific set-asides? It says small business, but it didn't designate beyond that.
Do you want me to answer that? Go ahead.
I think generally we try to keep it as open as we can. I mean, we do have set aside for small business contracts, but we like to have a wider competition in general. Some contracts are specifically 8A.
So the ones that I described are primarily small business, and a number of them are 8As. So in fact, all of the contracts within my division are small business. So that, and we target all of them for that purpose.
And we've also had success getting small business firms, not just 8A firms, through the GSA schedules. So we strongly recommend that you pursue those schedules. We use MOBIS quite a bit, and still using AIMS, AIM, AIMS. So we've had success in reaching small businesses on the GSA schedules in the past. Yes, sir.
I have a question. Are these presentations by different speakers in the webcast going to be posted on the website? If it is so, where can we find it?
It will be. It is being archived. It is being posted for HUD. I'll make sure that it's on huduser.org.
We can do that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah,
so we'll have all the.
Where do we go and look for it?
huduser.org. O-R-G. That's our research portal. There's also HUD.gov, and you can find PD&R through HUD.gov, but we have a special portal for our own information that's .org.
Thank you.
Okay. And before you leave, I wanted to just give you the arrangement of how you'll be able to talk to people. We've arranged tables outside with each of the offices. And for instance, if you refer to your business contracting opportunities handout, you'll see Office of Research, Evaluation, and Monitoring. So if you're interested in this particular procurement, you would go to that table, and the people will be there to talk with you. And I think they spelled out that they might be using acronyms. You know, government might say ORM, something like that. But I think they spelled out the whole name. And also, I encourage you to get some of our publications that are outside. We have limited copies because of sequestration. But you can download them on huduser.org. But I think we might have enough for the folks here. Anyway, there's this little pamphlet gives a good overview of PD&R. Our assistant secretary left for other activity, pursue other interests, of course, but we'll have a new one soon, but the information's still valid. We have one on data sets, and then we have the biannual report that gives you a really good synopsis of what we do and the type of contracts we seek and think this is a great publication. You can get it online if we run out, and I apologize if we run out, but that's how it is these days.
I mentioned
So,
that the biennial report is an example of the kind of graphic arts that we do produce, so that you can take a look at the style and so forth that we use, and it's a good way to learn about what we do.
And we'll be outside as well, so if you don't know who to go to, just come to myself or any of the panel members. And Mr. Ruiz is going to stay. And then we're also having a table for our contracts are procured in Fort Worth, Texas. So Kathy Baker and Kenneth Truesdale will be here, and there's a table for them if you have questions about our contracting procedures. And so we're adjourning, but not for good, so we'll see you outside. Thank you.
Thank you.